All right, folks, I can't possibly overstate the extent to which knowledge of this needs to be widespread. Project 2025 is a Heritage Foundation backed plan which lays out the guidelines for how, if Donald Trump wins in 2024, they will, well, they call it a presidential transition project. And I'm glad to see the Republican Party is finally on board with allowing the presidential administration to go by its preferred pronouns. It begins with, this is its own website, by the way, it is not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we're going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration. Now, to read more directly from them, which we will do, of course, would sort of hamper the project a bit. What this essentially is a proposed plan to destroy the administrative state and to completely undermine democracy. It's essentially their institutional legislative plan to just end the country. From the LA Times, conservative groups draw up plan to dismantle the U.S. government and replace it with Trump's vision. This is being done out in the open now. This is... Here, this is just, I think this is a copy and paste of a PBS article, which looks a little prettier, so we're going to go with this one, actually. Led by long-established Heritage Foundation think tank and fueled by former Trump administration officials, they're talking about it openly, by the way. In fact, I saw an interview with a former Trump administration official on C-SPAN where he was just talking about this plan. With a nearly 1,000-page Project 2025 handbook and an army of Americans, the idea is to have the civic infrastructure in place on day one, to commandeer, reshape, and do away with what Republicans deride as the deep state bureaucracy, in part by firing as many as 50,000 federal workers. So, when Republicans say deep state, it's deliberately vague and it can mean basically anything. The closest thing to a deep state that we have that they actually refer to would be our administrative state. We have three branches of federal government, of course: the judicial, that's the Supreme Court; the legislative, that's Congress; and the executive, that's the presidency. The president has the ability to appoint cabinet ministers, and the cabinet is made up of people who run respective federal departments. So you have like the Department of Defense, you have the EPA, the employees who work for these systems. These are the members of the administrative state. It is the bureaucracy that allows our country to exist. There is no way for our country to exist without them. So many essential governmental roles are filled by the administrative state that their complete destruction would functionally just delete the country. You can't do without them. It's not possible. So rather than destroy the deep state, which is what the Republicans have said they've wanted, what they actually want to do is replace it with their own guys. Fascists don't like bureaucrats because bureaucrats deal in facts and numbers. They keep receipts, they file paperwork, they move slowly, and they tend to be very procedural. Fascists don't like any of these things. They want loud, dumb, fast action. They don't like having to cross-check things with a bunch of nerdy, pencil-pushing, glasses-wearing Poindexters. They just want it done. The dismantling, or at least the streamlining of bureaucracy, is a core component of many fascists' time at the head of their respective administrations. They just don't like being made to work with bureaucrats effectively. That's the reason why we're seeing this shift. That's the reason why we're seeing this effort to completely dismantle and then replace the elements of the administrative state that they don't like. Essentially, they want to get rid of anyone capable of stopping them. The FBI, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Attorney General. They want to control all the systems that could potentially be used to stop them from doing what they want to do. Quote, "We need to flood the zone with conservatives," said Paul Dans, director of the 2025 Presidential Transition Project in a former Trump administration, who speaks with historical flourish about the undertaking. By the way, if you've ever wondered what Vivek Ramaswamy, Vivek, I forget how you pronounce the last name. If you've ever wondered why he says there are three branches of government, not four, that's what he's referring to. The fourth one that he's referring to, that is the administrative state. That is the thing they're talking about dismantling here. In all likelihood, the reason why he made that one of his slogans is probably because he was aware of Project 2025.
The people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government. not this bureaucracy that actually runs the show today. That's the biggest myth in American democracy, is that we actually elect our leaders. We don't. We go through the motions. The real people who run the show are part of an acronymous three-letter alphabet soup in the federal government. So I think it's going to take an outsider to do this. But I've said, you know what? We're not just going to reform that administrative state, right? Let's just take the Department of Education. I'm not going to put a nice person on top of it, Betsy DeVos or somebody else, and say change some things up until the next guy comes along and then it's back to normal. That doesn't work. The only answer when you have a rot that runs that deep is that you shut it down. And so I've said we will shut down.
The unprecedented effort is being orchestrated with dozens of right-flank organizations, many new to Washington, and represent a changed approach from conservatives, who traditionally have sought to limit the federal government by cutting federal taxes and slashing federal spending. Instead, Trump-era conservatives want to gut the administrative state from within by ousting federal employees they believe are standing in the way of the president's agenda and replacing them with like-minded officials more eager to fulfill a new executive's approach to governing. Again, it is what the Nazis did, yes. The goal is you gut the administrative state, then replace them all with ideologues. You just fill it from top to bottom with people who agree with you completely and will not stop you, no matter what you say or what you want to do. It's just a way of filling it with loyalists. If this is done, if they succeed in doing this, then America is over. And I mean that. Maybe it comes back at some point. If they succeed in doing this, it is, yeah, that's pretty much it, you know. The goal is to avoid the pitfalls of Trump's first years in office, when the Republican president's team was ill-prepared, his cabinet nominees had trouble winning Senate confirmation, and his policies were met with resistance by lawmakers, government workers, and even Trump's own appointees. What they're essentially saying is Trump wasn't able to get a lot of stuff done because what he wanted to do was illegal. It was unconstitutional, and he was stopped both because it was illegal and because it was not possible. And what they're saying is if we simply replace everyone who would stop us with loyalists, this won't be an issue, who refuse to bend or break protocol or in some cases violate laws to achieve his goals. The president day one will be a wrecking ball for the administrative state, said Russ Vought, a former Trump administration official involved in the effort, who is now president at the Conservative Center for Renewing America. They go on for a while here with the extent to which this would be a threat to democracy. There's a top-to-bottom overhaul of the Department of Justice, particularly curbing its independence and ending FBI efforts to combat the spread of misinformation. It calls for stepped-up prosecution of anyone providing or distributing abortion pills by mail. There are proposals to have the Pentagon abolish its recent diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, what the project calls the woke agenda, and reinstate service members discharged for refusing the COVID-19 vaccine. A chapter written by Trump's former acting Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security calls for bolstering the number of political appointees and redeploying office personnel with law enforcement ability into the field to, quote, maximize law enforcement capacity. What? Who wrote this? Redeploying office personnel to the field in the DHS? To what end? Okay. They just want to form like a handhold link all across the southern border. The whole grande, just right on the other side of the river, you know? At the White House, the book suggests the new administration should, quote, re-examine the tradition of providing workspace for the press corps and ensure the White House counsel is deeply committed to the president's agenda. So reading past the euphemism, what they're saying is they no longer want the press to be able to challenge the president during the press briefings. They want to make sure that the White House counsel toes the line. I think it's very fitting that this plan gets rolled out and gets talked about very shortly after the Harper v. Moore case from the Supreme Court. The whole thing falls through. Harper v. Moore was the last, big effort from the Republicans, the big, snap decision to end democracy effectively by allowing local state representatives to reshape how they handle their elections on both a federal, state, and local level. And now that that's fallen through, here's the new plan. We're going to completely gut the administrative state and make it so we don't even need the Supreme Court or Congress. Yeah, dismantling all climate policy. Remember how earlier we talked about how some concessions to energy policy are acceptable if it means the Biden administration gets to ensure a higher degree of energy independence and therefore lessens the extent to which Russia and Saudi Arabia can influence the election towards Trump? This is why. If Trump wins, the plan, which would hugely expand gas infrastructure, was authored by Bernard McNamee, a former official at the agency. He previously led the far-right Texas Public Policy Foundation, which fights environmental regulation. These people have all had private meetings with Russian and Saudi officials. I guarantee you. The far right is shiftless, international, and driven largely by capital demands. I guarantee you they have. To be fair, both sides probably have. There is no both sides because there is no Democrat 1,000-page long mandate on how to destroy democracy. If there was a 1,000-page long proposal made by progressive Democrats, I guarantee you the people making it would not have had meetings with Saudi or Russian leaders. It's called the Mandate for Leadership, by the way. I guess they decided that, like, the whole proposal in and of itself didn't sound fascist enough, so the actual 1,000-page brief had to be called Mandate for Leadership, as if we could possibly lean into that aesthetic any more than we already are. Literally the Seven Mountains Mandate. I'm afraid I don't know what that is, though it sounds familiar. Check page 13, first paragraph. We already have so much to talk about. The next conservative president should go beyond merely defending America's energy interests, but go on the offense, asserting them around the world. America's vast reserves of oil and natural gas are not an environmental problem. They are the lifeblood of economic growth. American dominance of the global energy market would be a good thing for the world, more importantly, for we the people. It's not just about jobs, even though unleashing domestic energy production would create millions. It's not just about higher wages for workers who didn't go to college, though they would receive the wages they had missed out on for 2 generations. Full-spectrum strategic energy dominance would facilitate the reinvigoration of America's entire industrial and manufacturing sector as we disentangle our economy from China. Globally, it would rebalance power away from dangerous regimes in Russia and the Middle East. It would build powerful alliances with fast-growing nations in Africa and provide us the leverage to counter Chinese ambitions in South America and the Pacific. Locally, it would drive billions of dollars of private investment to the communities that have been hammered by globalization since the 1990s. Full-spectrum dominance. People are still going over the specifics of this document, but there is so much in here. Do they have a section on wokeness? Like one titled wokeness? No section called wokeness. I guarantee you, 31 results, 35. Actually, not the first one, the Great Awakening. That's true. Check the Department of Education section for some giga cringe. Last thing we're looking at, because the whole point here is that they would do everything. Everything bad, they would do all of it. That's the point. Federal Department of Education should be eliminated, of course. Are you still optimistic about 2024? I still think that Biden has a strong chance to win against Donald Trump, yes. Advancing education freedom, that means school choice. Why do they want to remove the education department, honestly asking? Because they don't want there to be any national standards. They want the standard of education and college attendance to lower, and they want it to be controlled more locally, because the more local things get, the more likely most people are to be educated under a conservative doctrine. Enforcement of civil rights should be based on a proper understanding of those laws, rejecting critical gender ideology and critical race theory. Well, they definitely have a game plan. The lobbyists from 2025 are everywhere, even in climate-friendly orgs. Yeah, no, they are absolutely all over the place. If anything, just interpret this as a reminder of how essential it is that they don't win. Incredibly important. If this were to somehow succeed, it would also be very bad for Europe and the rest of the world. Yeah, that's true. I do think it's also worth remembering that even if Trump won in 2024, I do not think that necessarily means we can expect this plan to go through. Right now, this is just a big wish list that a bunch of American fascists have collaborated. It's a wish list that a bunch of fascists have collaborated on. It's not necessarily like an indication they're capable of enacting it. Who's going to stop them? They are. Fascists are incompetent. And if bureaucracies could be disbanded that easily, then it would have been easier for Trump to do it to begin with. Trump tried to get people. Remember the pressure he placed on the FBI director to fire the investigator, and he wasn't able to in the past. You know, it's not a guarantee that they'll be that much more successful this time. Do you think they want this to be public? Yes. At the very least, they planned for it to be public, because this document is loaded with language that's meant for the press, not for the people who wrote it. Like, a whole bunch of this is a way of, euphematizing, softening the blow on a lot of the stuff they're advocating for. What they're talking about is replacing the administrative state with loyalists and using it to dismantle America entirely and ensure a nonstop 24/7, no opposition allowed game plan for their regime. But rather than saying that, of course, they're using cozier language. So I think that at some point it was always meant to go to the press. It's smarter to frame stuff like this anyway. I mean, this is a manifesto, right? No, it's a mandate for leadership. It's a wish list with a lot of money backing it, like the banks pouring trillions into fossil fuel expansion in the global south. Yeah, of course. Like I said, it's international capital. It always comes back to capital. Behind every horrible, bad idea, every destructive policy, every politician who knowingly lies and seems to be aware of the fact that people know they're lying, but it doesn't matter, it's always money. Every time, always. And people ask me if I think a workers' democracy would be better for the people. You know, like all the corporations would act exactly the same. It's so obviously a class lines thing every single time. Well, hopefully it doesn't happen. Makes me a full doomer accelerationist. I don't think that being a doomer is an appropriate response to any of the information that we've gone over this stream. Do you think it'll happen? I just said that I don't think they'd be able to do it, and I think that Biden is likely to win. I feel like a lot of you guys are really just here to latch on to your daily dose of hopium or copium, and like apart from that, don't look to me. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, do the best you can. Oh yeah, I saw this. This was very funny. I like how Mehdi Hassan has like the magical gene that lets him talk over people effortlessly.
You say you are anti-identity politics, anti-affirmative action in a party that hates the Soros name, yet you accepted a Paul and Daisy Soros scholarship at law school that was specifically set up for the children of immigrants. It was an affirmative action scholarship, and your defense for that is that you didn't have the money to pay for law school, even though you'd already made over $1 million at the time and made another $2 million.
My defense of that is somebody gives you a merit scholarship at the age of 24, you take it. At the age of 24, somebody gives you a merit scholarship, you take it. I didn't say I didn't have the money. I said at a time when I had a lot less money than now, $50,000
you said exactly I didn't have the money, Vivek. You keep forgetting your quote. You said, when I didn't have the money.
So Mehdi, I've made this really easy for everybody. And I did this in the early weeks of the campaign. I released 20 years of tax returns.
Yes, you did.
Something that no presidential candidate, let alone somebody who's successful in business.
I think I've mentioned this before, but like he made his money on like a rug pull, basically. He like raised money to buy a company that was failing, and then he got people really hyped up for an upcoming success, and then he sold the company before anything happened, and then the company failed and went under. Like he basically just, all of his money, like none of it came from like the market broadly. He just took money from investors, which, you know, fitting.
Has done. I challenge Democrats and Republicans alike, including the Biden family, to do it.
And you
know what? I released it so that you could look at them, so we can have an honest conversation.
I appreciate that.
The funny thing I've learned,
I do appreciate that. It's something Trump should learn from you.
I think that transparency is important.
Look,
it's already open and everybody can see it.
Exactly. We have 2009.
But the fact of the matter is, you know what I would advise every 24-year-old should take
2009 and 2010. You made $750,000. You had the money to pay for law school. You didn't need a Soros affirmative action scholarship that you now criticize.
I mean, none of this is worthy, but if you think it is, let's get to the detail. That was actually the first big piece of money.
You say you're anti-affirmative action. You took a scholarship for immigrants.
I'm anti-affirmative action.
So why'd you take a...
Look at his fake ass car dealership smile when he's being called out. Holy shit. He's so mad. Oh my God.
A scholarship for the children of immigrants.
Which falsehood would you like me to address? The financial one or the one about my views on affirmative action? Because I can go in whichever order you'd like.
On
the financial piece of it, not at the time that I had applied for the scholarship that fall.
Yes, you did.
That December.
Yes, you did, Vivek. This is awkward for you because you did. I've got the tax returns in front of my face.
No, it's not awkward for you. Yes, on December 31st, when the application for the scholarship was that October. Mehdi, you're wasting your time on childish details in October of that year when I applied for that scholarship. And it was, well, guess what? The bonuses that a hedge fund pays, and it's a shame that, again, you don't have to be an expert on this, but if you're going to spout out, you better know something about it. People pay at a hedge fund the bonuses at the end of a year, and on December 31st, that's when I was paid. I applied for the scholarship that September, and I did not grow up in a wealthy family.
Vivek, you made more money the previous year.
I made $200,000 pre-tax or whatever it was.
No, you didn't.
And you know what?
No, you didn't. You're now telling flat. In 2009,
you have my tax returns in front of you. I don't remember what I made in 2009.
In 2009, you made $650,000. In 2010, you made less, $450,000. So the argument that you only made the money pre the scholarship,
$650,000 pre-tax. Oh, guys, hold on. Dude, this is like me. This is like me trying to like talk to people I meet on Grindr or whatever and try to explain how I'm actually like a member of the proletariat or something. It's like, how much does your channel make? And I'm like, well, okay. Now let's take this number in its proper context, okay? First of all, I paid taxes on this afterwards, all right? Okay, that's for one. Like, it's... Oh my God. Of course, personally, ideologically, like, I don't actually give a shit whether or not he took the sponsorship. If he wants money, like, and the money's there, like, people are going to take the money. But the funny thing is that, like, because he's an ideologue, dishonest piece of shit, he has to lie about it. So I don't care about anything other than the fact that he has to lie. You know, the lying is what I care about. If he was honest and he was just like, yeah, I don't believe in that, but as long as the incentive is there, I'll take it, and that's it, you know? Like, then that'd be fine, you know? But it's just very funny to see him, like, flounder on this.
Now we're bringing tax into it. We've been using gross numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vivek, you're wrong on this. Go back and check your tax returns.
$50,000.
Trump was way better on this. He just said it made me smart. Yeah. Trump did this correctly. Trump said whenever Trump was called out on all of the, like, government benefits that he took advantage of in his wealth, he was just like, yeah, it makes me money. Yeah, of course. And he owned it, which made him pretty much, like, impossible to attack on those fronts, you know?
Obviously makes a big difference.
And then you accepted a Soros scholarship for $50,000 when you didn't need it.
Well, you know what the fact is, Mehdi, is $50,000 did make a big difference to me back then. And anybody who has a few $100,000 in the bank is going to take $50,000 without...
That's just a small loan.
Strings attached. Take the scholarship. But my question for you is, why on earth are you, as an intelligent person interested in politics, obsessing over a 24-year-old's $50,000 scholarship?
I'm interested in truth,
beneath
Vivek.
you.
It's on your cap that you wear. I'm interested in truth.
And Mehdi, that's why I released 20 years. Mehdi, that is why I released 20 years of tax records. Tell your friends in the Biden administration to do the same thing.
Here's the fellow. Oh yeah, Paul and Daisy Soros Fellowship for New Americans. Vivek Ramaswamy, 2011. So not 23 years ago, but 12. But yeah, it's very funny. Remember how I said before that, like, this is often the case with philanthropic billionaires. Soros has so much money that everyone has taken his money. Like, there are conservatives, liberals, progressives, fascists who have just been connected to him financially just for how much money he has put into, like, grants and stuff. He is money. It's just very funny. I love Mehdi Hassan. I wish he'd follow me. Mehdi Hassan, I'm also a debate bro. I want to win every argument. Have you taken Soros money? Yeah, Sake Tanukis.